Hey everybody. Tonight I'm playing Truxton for the Sega Genesis. I think what I'm going to do with these videos, since I'm actually playing these games from the recently released Retrobit Toaplan Shooters collection, is I'm just going to make videos for all four of them and then pack them together into one video. I think they're all great games, and yeah, they'd be worthy of standalone videos, but I mean, in this day and age, and the fact that honestly I did not play all of these games that much back in the day, I feel it would be inauthentic for me to dive hard into each individual game. I will say that Truxton is a game that I played back in the day, but it didn't really click with me. I've been playing it more recently, and I do, respect it as a game. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive into it here. We've got basic three settings: easy, normal, and hard. There are no other options for Truxton. Later Toaplan games, they added the option to enable rapid fire and various other settings. But Truxton already had rapid fire built in, so no biggie. As you can see, Truxton is a vertically scrolling shoot 'em up game. The one thing I will say about Truxton is it holds up pretty well. I mean, you got to remember, this is a game that was made for the arcades in '87, came to the Genesis, well, I guess in '89 or '90. I think Japan had it in '89. So this was an early Genesis game. And the fact that it's still rather decent by more recent standards is pretty cool. It does obviously suffer from some trappings of early Sega Genesis games. You might have noticed in the beginning the sound effects didn't kick in right away. I think it's awesome that Retrobit has released Truxton and three other Toaplan shoot 'em up games here in 2021. These games are getting much more difficult to find in the wild, especially Truxton, for reasonable prices anyways. So it's nice to have a re-release where you can get the game for like 45 bucks. I bought them all in the complete package, so I think it was like $150 for all four games, something like that. I prepaid for them back in the fall of 2020. Truxton's signature screen-filling bomb. Less impressive in the arcade, honestly, because in the arcade the bomb doesn't totally fill the screen. I think that's actually one of the improvements to the Genesis game, and it might seem odd that rescaling the screen has led to some improvements, but yeah, the bomb can actually be used to save your butt in this version of the game. Another advantage the Genesis port has over the arcade game is there's checkpoints. When you die, you get booted back some ways so that you can rebuild your power-up stash. And in the arcade, the checkpoints were rather brutal. You'd end up redoing entire sections you just couldn't stand. It was a real order killer. Whereas in this version of the game, the checkpoints are a little bit more friendly. There are some still that are total pains in the asses, though. As far as where the checkpoints are placed, I think Truxton is rather average on the Toaplan scale. It's not the worst, it's not the best. As you can see, there are 3 weapons power-ups you can pick up. The red spread shot is generally the most useful. However, there are some sections of the game where it just doesn't do enough damage, so you'll want to use the green shot here or the blue laser. I'm rather liberal with the bombs. Expert players hardly ever have to use them. Me, I'm no expert. I was never very good at this game. I've gotten better, but I'm still not the best. That 1-up right there is kind of a pain to collect because you can only get it if you collect all of the power-ups and defeat all of the enemies up to that point. The music has changed, so we're about to face off against the first of many bosses. Speaking of checkpoints, the one thing you don't want to do is die immediately after beating a boss, because it will kick you all the way back before the boss battle. Getting back to what I was saying about the re-releases here, I think Retrobit's done an excellent job with this collection. Each of the games has a snazzy slipcover, a translucent cartridge shell, foil embossed labels, and all of that. You get a color printed manual. There's bonus stickers and like a little collector's card in each game case. Plus, the game cases now have reversible artwork, so you can look at the original cartridge artwork or the arcade game artwork. Those guys always seem to get me the first time through. I swear, if you're doing good, those guys are more aggressive than if you're not. Hated to have to use that bomb there, but I was about to get blown to bits. This stage is a pain in the butt anyway. There are these light bulb things coming up soon where if you destroy them, they spit bullets back at you, and well, that's not my idea of a good time. Did not want to grab that, but we will deal. I would definitely be happy to not die on this stage, or at least until I get to the boss, because redoing so much of this stage is total pain. This is my least favorite stage in the game. Mostly because this is the stage where enemies start coming up right behind you. I will say, apart from some of the elements I don't like, you know, the enemy sneaking up behind me, Truxton's a pretty well-executed shoot-'em-up game. It's inviting for beginners, but has just a ton of replay value for people who want to develop their expertise. It's definitely not the sort of game you're going to beat the first day you get it, unless you stick to easy mode and grind. Oh, those chicken walkers are a pain. And that's why I wanted to have the blue laser or the green weapon starting this spot. These guys are just... The normal bullets don't do enough damage. Back in the day, Toaplan's shoot-em-ups didn't necessarily click with me because I hate the checkpoint system. I'm one of those people who, when I'm playing a shoot-em-up game, just restart me exactly where I left off and let me keep going. But I've warmed up to Toaplan's shooters, and I gotta respect them as a company because, I mean, come on. They went on to make Batsugan, and then when their company folded, a lot of their people went on to found other popular shoot 'em up groups. I believe Rising. So, without Toaplan, we wouldn't have a lot of the great shoot 'em ups of today. So props to Toaplan. It's always nice to get another extra life. Those guys, if you don't shoot them quick enough, will fire bullets down at you. The simplest of shoot 'em up tenet supplies. Destroy everything quickly, and you won't have many problems. This will be interesting. This boss is a bit of a pain without bombs for me. I love how when you blow up enemies, little blast craters stay put. I mean, that's an effect we take for granted nowadays. I mean, this game was made originally in 88, 89. So it's just wild that that much detail was put into such an early Genesis game. And an early arcade game. I'd say shoot 'em up games didn't really hit their stride and their evolution until the early to mid-90s, honestly. Usually takes me a couple tries to beat that guy. Not today, Satan. Okay, now that the music has changed, I won't have to go back to that darn boss battle. Every time you collect 5 of the P icon power-ups, your level goes up, or your weapon level goes up an extra level of strength. The blue laser, when you get up to max... Ah. The blue laser, when you get up to max, has 5 beams instead of 3. The green weapon ends up with also 5 beams. The spread shot here is pretty cool when you get it maxed out. Not only do you get a ton of bullets, you get 2 shields that rotate around your ship. They won't stop enemy bullets, but they can destroy smaller enemies by running into them, which comes in handier than you think. When I eventually do lose my last life here, I think I'm going to end the video so I can move on and hit up the other games in the collection. Still, Truxton is a sweet game. You do get a decent number of continues, so playing on normal isn't the worst thing ever. Honestly, I don't feel much of a difference in difficulty between normal and or easy and normal, apart from the fact that easy has unlimited continues. I'm going to stick with this weapon. This stage is great for power-ups, but it's also very easy to get visually disoriented, as I did there. So with that, I'm going to move on to the next game in the collection. Alright, so next up in the collection is Hellfire, game number 2 in Retrobit's Toaplan collection. First thing I'm going to do is go into the options. You'll notice there's an easy difficulty level and a hard difficulty level. When it comes to this game, I honestly didn't play this one back in the day. I've played the arcade version a little bit, so I'm just going to leave it on the default of easy. Toaplan's difficulty settings tend to not mince words, so if there's a hard setting, hard is definitely hard. I am going to turn on rapid fire, however. I don't understand why that's off by default, but hey, easily fixed. So we'll get started here. Had to give that booming music a chance to play a little bit. This is a pretty faithful arcade adaptation. Obviously, the graphics have been resized and desaturated to fit within the Sega Genesis capabilities, but they did a good job of capturing the spirit of their original game. You can see Hellfire is a horizontally scrolling shoot-'em-up game. I'm pretty sure it was included in the collection. Well, in addition to the fact they could get the rights to include it, I'm pretty sure it was included to balance out Zero Wing so that there would be 2 horizontal shoot-'em-ups and 2 vertical shoot-'em-ups. When it comes to quality of the game, I think Hellfire is actually better than Zero Wing in many regards. You can cycle between 4 weapons. You have a powerful bomb-type weapon. There's more power-up diversity. So it's nice that this one's included. That little minus power-up is actually a one-hit shield, which for a Toaplan game is pretty darn appreciated. I wish the game had more of those. One of Toaplan's hallmarks in their earlier shoot-'em-up games is if you lose a ship, you go back to a checkpoint. The stages tend to be pretty long. Sometimes the checkpoints are a bit further back than you'd like. I like the weapon cycling mechanic. Being able to cycle between the 4 weapons on the fly is good. It'd be nice if the game took advantage of the 6-button controller to allow you to cycle back and forth. But no big whoop. It's not like the arcade allowed that. This boss can be a pain. You have to shoot the orb as it glows. And that's the key thing about the bosses in this game, is they require you to toggle between the 4 different weapons. So if that seems like a good thing to you, you'll like Hellfire. If that seems like an annoyance to you, you're not going to like Hellfire. I think between the booming music, the fast pace, and some of the big bosses, Hellfire is a pretty enjoyable game, certainly worth the play. In many regards, I enjoy it more than Zero Wing. That said, I am amazed that they included this on the collection and not a game like Grindstormer or Slap Fight. I think Grindstormer is better than Slap Fight, however, Slap Fight was never released in the West, so that would have been a coup. The one amazing thing about the history of Japanese developed shoot-'em-up games is most companies that make or made Japanese shoot-'em-ups seem to share a common lineage. If you dig deep enough, you'll find that Toaplan was in the DNA of each of them to some extent. I've got to remember Aiding and Rising as well as other companies that developed shoot-'em-up games. Again, that owe some of their existence to Toaplan. Without Toaplan, you would not have any of the modern shoot-'em-up games that you enjoy. And if you're like me and you really like shoot-'em-ups from the mid to late 90s, you have to give props to Toaplan for doing their thing. Thanks to them, we got to play some amazing shoot-'em-up games. And Toaplan in its own right made some pretty darn good games. One of my favorites that's certainly not on this collection was Tiger Heli, which was an arcade game that was ported to the NES. I played that game to death back in the day. With the first stage out of the way, we are now on a planet which is rather reminiscent of Egypt. I love that music. Some of the notes may be shrill, but the composition is just awesome. They really knew what they were doing with I'd say the Genesis sound chip, but Toaplan's arcade boards use similar architecture to the Genesis, obviously more powerful. But that's the nice thing about playing a Toaplan game. If you liked it in the arcade and you brought home the Genesis version. Oops. As I lose a ship there. Talking and playing, not my strong suit. As I was saying, if you liked a Toaplan game in the arcade, if they were the ones doing the port to the home system, the ports were generally pretty faithful. Yeah, there were some cutbacks to coloration or sprite sizes, you know, all the typical stuff you'd expect to see, but they kept the heart of the game intact. The only thing I don't like about Toaplan's earlier games is the checkpoint mechanic. I've always been a big fan of having ships respawn where they lay. But, you know, that's kind of Toaplan's thing. Lengthy levels, respawning back at checkpoints. Would have been nice if Retrobit had made some adjustments to these games to kind of, I wouldn't say make them better than their original releases, but to just add some spice, you know? Add a setting where the ship respawns in place. Maybe tweak the controls so that on a 6-button controller you can cycle the weapons forward and backward. You know, things like that. Small changes to improve the replayability. I love game reissues, don't get me wrong, but I think every time there's a reissue, there's an opportunity to improve upon the original release without besmirching its memory. All of the changes I suggested would be, you know, optional implementations that wouldn't ruin the original product. All in all, if I had to give this game a numerical grade out of 10, I'd call it a solid 7. It has its issues as I'm back here way back at this checkpoint. I don't function well with cramped spaces. Anyways, I think that's a good enough playthrough of Hellfire. We'll move on to the next game in the collection. Alright, next up in the Retrobit Toaplan collection is Fire Shark. As with the other games, I'm going to go in and switch the rapid fire to on. You get 3 difficulty settings in this one: easy, normal, and hard. I would say that easy and normal are pretty comparable. They're fair. Normal has more bullets. Hard is lives up to its name. I'm just going to leave it on the default of easy. We'll get started here. More of those catchy Toaplan tunes. I love the people running around the runway down there. This is another arcade port. This game is reminiscent of Truxton, well, I would call it realistic Truxton. I think because of Zero Wing, Toaplan is more known for its horizontal shoot-'em-up games, but really Toaplan kind of made their bread and butter on these realistic, vertically scrolling shoot-'em-up games. Things like Tiger Heli, Twin Cobra, and such. I hate the green weapon. I much prefer the stock spread shot. Let's face it, in any video game where you have the option for spread shot is the way to go. Unless you can have a blue homing laser. The animation of your ship getting destroyed is cool, but again, this is a Toaplan game, so when you lose a ship, you go back to a checkpoint. The checkpoints in this game aren't as brutal as some Toaplan games. You start a little bit further back, but not terribly far. This is your basic shoot-'em-up game. You have different weapons you can pick up. Every time you grab 3 P icons, the weapon power goes up a level, as you can see there. And in Toaplan fashion, it's never a good idea to lose a ship, because then you go down to your base power level, and that sucks. My only complaint about Fire Shark is that its game balance is not very forgiving to new players. This is a game that starts throwing things at you pretty quickly, and doesn't tend to let up once it gets going. I wouldn't call it bullet hell, but it's close. I'm not a fan of the bullet hell genre necessarily. I like realistic-looking shoot-'em-up games. Things like 1941, 42, 44. Basically anything with a year in the title. The little details in this game are great, from the people on the ground, the little trucks. Just the shadow under the ship is really well done, to be honest. At least Toaplan kept the effects where anything that blows up on the ground leaves a crater. I think that's very important in shoot-'em-up games. You need that ambiance, that grounding. I don't begrudge the presence of Fire Shark in this collection, even though it is odd that games like Twin Cobra and Grindstormer didn't make the cut. Twin Cobra because I think that series is more well-known than Fire Shark, and Grindstormer because that game needs more love. THQ, the company that published the game, used some pretty shoddy components, so having a reissue of that game would be very welcome. I know in my play of Hellfire, I mentioned I wish Retrobit had done some minor updates to the games to just kind of flesh them out a little bit. You know, make them plus versions without ruining the original intent. I think, again, with this game, I would have been really happy had they implemented an option to respawn where you died. But also, you know, additional extra touches that would be made possible by modern programming techniques, such as animating the water down there. On normal and hard, this ship kicks out a whole lot more bullets. Oops. Did not mean to trigger my bomb there. That's Sad Panda Day. This game is no slouch in the number of sprites on screen. It definitely set the 68,000 heart of the Genesis on fire. Check out the dolphin there in the lower left. Great detail from the arcade game. I have mad respect that Retrobit put out this collection. In this day of emulators and flash cartridges, I realize some people think it's crazy to drop $150 on 4 Sega Genesis reissues, but I just had to with the significance of Toaplan as a company. One of my favorite shoot-'em-up games is Battle Garega. Another one I really love is Batsugan. Without these early Toaplan games, neither of those games would have ever got made. So if I can do anything to support companies reissuing these classic games, I'm all for it. Again, I do think maybe Grindstormer would have been a better game to put in this spot than Fire Shark. Although, to be honest, really, when you look at the strength of the games in the collection in terms of gameplay, Zero Wing really is the odd one out. I know it's got meme status, but when it comes to balanced gameplay and richness, it's kind of the weird one. But hey, you can't release a Toaplan collection without Zero Wing, so... It's hilarious to think the shoot-'em-up genre really was at the peak of its popularity in the mid to late 90s. The games in this collection, for the most part, came out in the early 90s. And back then, shoot-'em-ups were a very niche product, much like they are these days. So the fact that a company published a shoot-'em-up game really said something about the state of the industry at the time. It wasn't that they were publishing them because they were popular, they were publishing them because they needed to get a product onto shelves. And that's why so many shoot-'em-ups from this era of gaming are so expensive. There aren't a lot of copies of Musha out there, or Arrow Fighters, Truxton. They just weren't plentifully produced. So I'm all for anything that companies do to reissue these games. And hey, Retrobit, if you're listening, and if you want to try and get the rights to Musha, even though I own an original copy of that, and it might devalue the resale value, I would be more than happy to buy 1 or 2 copies of a reissue of that game. As I lose my second ship here. I'm having quite a run. I probably should have switched it to normal. The history of the Japanese shoot-'em-up development scene is just... Somebody needs to make a book or a documentary on that. all of these companies spawned one another, basically. Now, I'm not saying that Toaplan and Cave and Rising and all of the other companies, that Psychio, Video System, I'm not saying all of those companies are direct descendants of each other or all identical, but when you look at the various bankruptcies and buyouts and staff moving from one company to the next, you can't deny the linkages. There's some of that in the fighting game development scene as well, but with the shoot 'em up scene, that was very true. Our dolphin buddies underneath the water there again. I just love little touches like that. The team porting this game to the Genesis didn't have to put in details like that, but they did. I very much appreciate things like that. Granted, the arcade version of this game had a lot more detail to it. A lot more, just incidental animations. It's pretty much true of every Toaplan game. Every port to the Genesis kept some of the details from the arcade, but had to sacrifice a fair number. Much like I just sacrificed a ship. I'm gonna get pretty freewheeling with the bombs here. And they're gonna get pretty freewheeling with blowing up my ships. Yeah, if you thought I was going to have a cakewalk with this, the chickens have come home to roost. My bad. Totally my bad there. See if I can break 1,000,000 points. Hey, broke 1,000,000, can't complain about that. Pretty solid run there. Pretty solid run. On to the next game. All right, next up in the Retrobit Toaplan Shoot 'em Up collection is Zero Wing. Let's go ahead and watch the intro here, since it's really what the game's known for. Somebody set up us the bomb. Main screen turn on. All your base are belong to us. You have no chance to survive. Make your time. Yes, Zero Wing, the video game that became a meme, is best known for its poorly translated English dialogue. Ironically, Zero Wing, until it became a meme, wasn't that well regarded. It just, it wasn't very frequently played. Toaplan didn't release the game in North America on the Sega Genesis, so those of us in North America, if we played it, we basically played it in the arcade. So it was the Europe region that saw the bad translation and got all the fun. It really wasn't until it became a meme and then people started playing it on emulation that it took off. I'm going to go in the options here real quick. As you can see, the typical Toaplan options menu. Let's go ahead and enable... well, actually, Rapid Fire is on by default in this one. Interesting how sometimes it's enabled by default and sometimes it's not. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. I must admit, I didn't expect Rapid Fire to be on by default. These animated intros are awesome. I think when it comes to the incidentals, the kind of details, the production value, Zero Wing is pretty high, which helps mitigate the fact that it's gameplay and all that. Awesome launch sequence there. Zero Wing is a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up game, as you can see. Horizontally scrolling. I'm going to avoid that weapon power-up. My general rule of thumb on this game is get the red power-up first, which will enable the satellites around your ship, and then get as many of the green power-ups as possible, which are the homing weapon. These little icons here are speed-up icons. Normally, I'd say don't get a ton of them because your ship can be very difficult to handle, but the only way to get a ton of extra lives is to collect those darn speed power-ups. Once you get like 5 or 6 of them, the next one you pick up will be an extra life, and sometimes it's 10 extra lives. Which, unless you've practiced the hell out of this game, comes in really handy. There's nothing hugely special about the gameplay. Dodge everything and survive. There are 3 different weapons. Spread shot, homing, and a laser weapon, typical of Toaplan. Every so often there's a bomb that drops that you can collect. The unique thing about Zero Wing is that instead of having your typical screen-clearing bomb, what this game does is you have this tractor beam type thing called the Prisoner Beam, which you can use to grab enemy ships and hold them in front of you, and in that way you can use them as meat shields. I don't use it very frequently, but when I do use it, it certainly comes in handy. That item right there is the bomb I was talking about. Now if I fling it in front of my ship, or if it hits something meaty, it will make a giant explosion. It can also absorb weak bullets. But beyond that, that's all there is to the gameplay in Zero Wing. It's a decently designed shoot 'em up. The graphics look pretty decent as well. The music is catchy, but I find the gameplay boring, honestly. Still, I gotta give props to Retrobit. This is a game that absolutely had to be included in a Toaplan collection. It's probably their most well-known game, and to see it finally released in North America in all of its poorly translated glory is awesome. The other nice thing is, this wouldn't be obvious to a lot of people, but the UK version of the game ran slower than the Japanese version, and so the music didn't quite sound right either. One thing Retrobit has done, or maybe Toaplan did it back in the day, is this version of the game runs at the proper speed, so props for that. And because it's part of the Toaplan Shoot 'em Up collection, it comes with all the associated bells and whistles, the translucent purple cartridge, the embossed slipcover, the reversible cover in the cartridge box, the stickers, the color manual. Honestly, for 45 bucks individually or 150, 159 for the set, just such a steal. I can't recommend the Retrobit Toaplan Shoot 'em Up collection enough. Certainly, if you're a fan of Genesis games and shoot 'em ups, it's a must-buy. Alright, now that I've maxed out the green power-up, it's less of a burden to accidentally grab other power-ups. I do tend to stick with the green one, but if I grab the blue laser or the spread, it's not going to hurt me as much. This next boss that's going to be coming up soon, probably going to eat me alive. I have such problems with it. In fact, for my money, this stage, the second stage in the game, is the toughest stage. Those homing missiles have a mild lock-on. You have to keep your ship moving, at least until one of them gets about halfway across the screen, or else they'll just smack into you. I unfortunately had the worst possible outcome there and ran my ship right into the floor. But that wasn't the... even if I blew him up, you have to beat 2 of those things for it to count as beating the boss of the level. So let's see if I can do it again. Alright, now we're gonna have a total nerve-wrack moment here. I think the music in this game is pretty good. It's not the best Toaplan ever did, but it's pretty darn solid. One thing Retrobit could have been nice to do with this collection is release the soundtracks along with the games. That would have been awesome. I would have been very happy to pay extra for that. This boss reminds me of the one of the bosses in Gunstar Heroes. As I lose my awesome bomb. I will miss you, awesome bomb. I really can't hate on the stage designs in this game. There's a good diversity of levels, I'll give them that. I just think compared to a game like Hellfire, where your weapons have a much more strategic use, or a game like Truxton, where the levels of your weapons really do seem to look different and cover the screen more effectively every time you level up. It's kind of tough to play a game like Zero Wing, where leveling up your weapons, while it does help somewhat, doesn't honestly offer that much pizzazz. I know they'd never let him do it, but a Konami collection would be pretty cool too. The best way to beat this guy is to sneak into the middle of the group of spinning orbs there. I just missed my timing on that, and now I'm not even going to risk it. I get R-Type vibes from this section. This level is most likely where I'm going to die. It's where things get crazy. And so many things can just come out from behind or just appear out of nowhere. I think we've gotten a good taste of Toaplan, though, with this set of videos. You've made it through this whole thing, props to you. If you fast forwarded a lot, hey, I don't blame you. Oh. All right, I'm not going to continue, so with that, I'm out of here. See ya.